Reality is a fickle thing. What it gives with one hand, it seductively snatches with the other. This ontological unease is only made more manifest in the postmodern period, where economic and aesthetic production become part of the same process of deterritorialization, sweeping up all things in a cycle of mass production and consumption. This unease haunts not only the night, but follows us into the world of the everyday, and in particular is made manifest in the postmodern city. Here, postmodernity wears its expansive networks of deterritorialized cells on its sleeve. One is bombarded with sensations, styles, and subjects of myriad sorts. Attempting to sort through this smorgasbord, Bruno Schulz tackles the postmodern city in all its fragmentation and foreboding in his short story, The Street of Crocodiles. A brilliant piece of fiction all its own, it barrages us with objects that seem to function as symbols, although it is often hard to know just what for. This it is necessary to bring in Sigmund Freud, the Uncanny, to solve. A dynamic text utilizing psychoanalytic methodology to help explain a curious aspect of postmodernity. That despite the world's fragmentation, it seems to hide something just beneath the surface. Leading to a generalized paranoia, the postmodern city demands explanation at the same time that it precludes any reduction to clarity or sense. Here I will address the way agency is interpreted on behalf of the paranoid postmodern subject in an attempt to explain the landscapes and spaces we inhabit uncomfortably. To understand the Street of Crocodiles, it would behoove us to first heed Freud's observations about the uncanny. For Freud, art is of interest for its ability to induce in subjects a feeling of unease of particular interest to him and therefore us. The uncanny, more than just the creepy or the scary, is that species of the frightening that goes back to what was once well known and had long been familiar. A testament hearkening to the undead ideas that haunt our unconscious. As Deleuze and Guattari state in A Thousand Plateaus, ideas do not die, not that they survive simply as archaisms. Freud is interested in the mystery of that in-between, not quite dead, not quite resurrected and historically displaced qua archaism either. Once known, but perhaps too obscene to maintain, it is more than forgotten. It is aufgehoben, that is, both cancelled and retained in auxiliary form. Freud devotes a great deal of time to the word heimlich, literally homely, hence canny, pronouncing its ambiguities. Latent in the word itself are warring antagonisms that allow both meanings as maintenance. Freud states that this word heimlich is not unambiguous, but belongs to two sets of ideas, which are not mutually contradictory, but very different from each other. The one relating to what is familiar and comfortable, the other to what is concealed and kept hidden. For Freud, art is such that its various shades of meaning are latently available in a warring interrelationship that manifests itself, if ever it does, to the subject as something uncanny, and that therefore induces paranoia. Able to arouse in the onlooker vague notions of automatic, mechanical processes that may lie hidden beneath the familiar image of a living person. Images of the uncanny are coped with by the subject's proportional imaging of nefarious causes of the paranoia out in the world. From competing libidinal forces arises an ambiguity, partially semantic in nature, that motivates a precarious imaginative impulse. It is this impulse of paranoia that is roused in the reader of The Street of Crocodiles, and which requires further investigation. In The Street of Crocodiles, one is framed as narratee in such a way that, of direct concern is not the city, that is, world itself, but an image or representation of the city in the form of a map. Instinctively bringing to mind in the contemporary reader steeped in theory notions of the map not equaling the territory, the story is not only framed metatextually, but our knowledge of anything is thereby noted as being representation mediated. One is told that the map being made in the style of Baroque panoramas. While a seemingly minor detail, to consider the style of representation is, by extension, to consider information mediated qua ideas, that is, a representation, and therefore ideology. This is helpful to the reader who, when living in the real world, is bombarded with representations of affluence, success, happiness, pleasure, etc., dressed by ideology. And if one is to address these representations critically, one should first see how the deck stacks. Schulz twists this search for meaning in a postmodern sea of chaos, however, by making us feel intellectually that perhaps the deck is stacked against us. Everything begins to take on so many hues that ambiguities pile up in Freudian fashion, all becoming in turn noticeably suggestive, that is, generally indicative, but also sexually indicative. Everything seemed suspect and equivocal there. Everything promised with secret winks, cynically stressed gestures, raised eyebrows, the fulfillment of impure hopes. Everything helped to release the lowest instincts from their shackles. Told in terms that readily allow for innuendo, postmodern representations being commodified and commercialized appeal to the libidinal. As Freud shows, however, with the libidinal comes the ambiguity of the repressed and hence eerily familiar. Anything has the potential to stand for something else, something that is not and that we may not even have taken heed of. Symbolic interactions occur at the speed of infinity, ideas changing place with one another in a vast array of shifting layers. The reader of the Street of Crocodiles is shifted round about its city with the intent to reveal, yet what seems to worry us the most, what parties are against us, who is in control, what seems to be lurking and what will it do to me, lies just beyond the pale of manifest description. The result? Disorientation, and with it, anxiety. If one cannot discern what is real from the unreal, a sham comedy, a screen ironically placed to hide the true meaning of things, then one begins to interpolate meanings in the cracks between the city's layers of ideology and differences. That is, one begins to imagine agency, bad actors who have nefarious intentions. Filled with facade, Schulz's city is the typified image of our real world, plagued with indicators of nefarious intent that one cannot rule out as originating from oneself. Schulz's world, importantly, is inflected aesthetically as highly dramatized, perhaps even mysteriously choreographed. He paints for us the most uncanny picture of a world where behind its crumbs may be an animated order of things, totally unknown and absolutely threatening. As William S. Burroughs had put it, every man has inside himself a parasitic being who is acting not at all to his advantage. That is, there seems lurking not only behind things, but already within them a force which, precisely because it is there, demands a paranoid response. What is alarming is how this paranoid logic makes a certain kind of sense to us, meaning we may already be trapped in this paranoid logic. As Schulz writes, reality is as thin as paper and betrays with all its cracks its imitative character. At times, one has the impression that it is only the small section immediately before us that falls into the expected pointillistic picture of a city thoroughfare, while on either side, the improvised masquerade is already disintegrating and, unable to endure, crumbles behind us into plaster and sawdust, into the storeroom of an enormous, empty theater. the tenseness of an artificial pose, the assumed earnestness of a mask, an ironic pathos tremble on this facade. Bereft of ontological surety, the postmodern subject is faced with a world made thin from its own internal pressure and made to cope with what is as close to magic as one has, the imagination. By imbuing the city with a subterranean narrative, one is assured that at least our ontological knowledge has been birthed from an irresistible sense of surety and a reality impulse that would thereby justify our representations of our world. Hence, the most violent, physically destructive realization for the paranoid postmodern is that our paranoia has zero basis in reality. Not only does it mean we are wrong, that our suspicions were based solely on delusion, but it necessitates the perhaps equally terrifying second-order paranoia, a hyper-paranoid realization. Our hopes were a fallacy. The suspicious appearance of the premises and of the staff were a sham. The clothes were real clothes, and the salesman had no ulterior motives. That is, that there is a world entirely unknown to one, all the while one has been ingratiated in pure delusions, perhaps a more horrifying realization than the original paranoia. In conclusion, paranoia is a fundamental mode of encounter with postmodernity. Schulz's image of a map of the postmodern city reflects, in snapshot, an array of tendencies that lead to an onset of uncanny paranoia, and as a response, uncanny imaginings. Through Freud's conception of the uncanny as layered and coexistent with the familiarity of facade, and the resultant paranoid imaginings, one is able to observe and understand an important mode of postmodern subjectivity. Thank you for watching. I hope that this has been interesting. You can check out any of my other lectures I've done on postmodernism, German idealism, gender theory, post-colonial studies, and other classic literature. You can also become a channel member for $5 a month and gain access to, among other things, a private philosophy Zoom, which you can tailor to your needs. I also have super thanks if you'd just like to donate to the channel, because it helps me purchase all the books necessary to bring y'all good content. But no pressure. Care about yourself first. That being said, that's it for this lecture, and I will see you in another one.